The building of settlements in East Jerusalem continues. Even so, Israel frets about its rift with the United States. President Shimon Peres stresses the importance of America to Israel.
And we have the highest regards for the United States. I think no matter what one thinks about the United States, a world without the United States would be a very wild place.
Where it goes from here is quite serious. There's really a question as to whether or not the Netanyahu government is able to make these concessions to the Americans, or the government might fall if they try to. And if it didn't make these concessions, I think the Obama administration is prepared to push this fairly hard.
Colin Chapman welcoming you to Agenda with George Friedman.
We first have to understand how we got here. The United States is involved in two wars, in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's trying to negotiate an exit. And its commanders on the ground are saying that it might affect this process somewhat if there was at least a peace negotiation going on between Israel and the Palestinians. Whether it leads to anything is not nearly as important as that some movement appear in place. It might be a minor point in all of this, but it's a point. The Americans want that peace process to go forward, and that peace process can't go forward while the Israelis are building settlements. However they determine it, whether this is considered in Jerusalem or the West Bank, the point is irrelevant to the Americans. The Americans have asked them to stop. The Israelis have refused. The Americans see this as a modest request to an ally. It's been turned down. The Israelis see this as an attack on their sovereignty. They've turned it down, and that's the crisis we're facing.
Are you saying that Israel has become part of the problem rather than part of the solution?
I think the way I would put it is the United States has an extremely serious political problem, particularly in Afghanistan. Its view is that every little potential bit would help, and that this particular issue should not be central to the Israelis. And so, from the American point of view, it is the uncompromisingness of the Netanyahu government and their constant assertion that Israel is a sovereign state and will do what it needs to do, which is resulting in the Obama administration response: the United States is also a sovereign government, and it will do what it needs to do, and Israel should not assume on its relationship to the United States.
So the question that must come next is Israel essential to America's grand strategy in the Middle East?
Israel was certainly essential to American grand strategy during the Cold War. It pinned down both the Egyptians and the Syrians at critical points for the United States. It was important to the United States during the War on Terror. Right now, the United States is engaged in a complex withdrawal from two countries, Iraq and Afghanistan. And the question is, will the Israelis be useful to that strategy, or will they be a hindrance?
Can a conservative alliance like the one in Israel really ever move forward to a tangible peace process?
Well, I mean, that is the basic question. It's also to be remembered that there are other alliance possibilities available for Netanyahu should he want them. But I think the way that Obama is approaching this is that the political problems that Netanyahu is experiencing in Israel is not his problem. His problem is managing these two wars, and if the Israelis don't care to be part of the solution, that's their sovereign right. He must proceed in spite of that.
So what about the timing of all this?
One of the most important things that Netanyahu said during his visit is if the United States continues to press on this issue, it may be another year before the Israelis consent to talks with the Palestinians. The United States wants those talks sooner rather than later, and they're frankly more concerned about the talks than they are about the outcome.
And Stratfor will be watching for any change in Israel's position this weekend and in the coming week. This weekend there are elections in Italy and Kazakhstan, and China's Vice President Xi Jinping is in Gothenburg, where he may sign the deal for the Chinese purchase of Ford's Volvo car unit. On Monday in Shanghai, the verdict is due on the Rio bribery case, and Germany's Angela Merkel meets the Turkish leadership. Merkel has said Turkey isn't right for EU membership and may skate round an alternative. Later this week she'll be in London, where Prime Minister Gordon Brown is expected to announce the election date. On Tuesday, France's President Nicolas Sarkozy will be in Washington meeting President Barack Obama. And on Thursday, Turkey's President Abdullah Gül begins a visit to Pakistan. And from Thursday onwards, for 7 days, it might be hard to do business in Venezuela because the president there has given government employees a week off, citing the need to save electricity. Much of the world shuts Friday for Easter, but countries on the Mekong will be meeting with China to discuss drought, water, and a range of other issues. That's Agenda for this week. I'm Colin Chapman. Thanks for being with Stratfor.